Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Deadpool and Wolverine has been out for over a week now. That movie was so massive that I needed a week plus to kind of gather my thoughts and to properly digest everything that went on in that movie. First off, welcome back to everyone that's watching this channel. I haven't uploaded in a month plus because I've been busy moving, but now we are back full throttle, and yeah, this is the road to 1 million subscribers, so I can't wait. Leave a like, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, let's talk Deadpool Wolverine. So I'm gonna get it out of the way. I, for the most part, really enjoyed this movie. It's a very interesting situation that it's in the fact that Disney bought Fox, and so the character was literally in limbo. No one was really sure what was going to happen. Most people assumed that Deadpool was going to continue in some capacity because of how successful he is, and he wasn't necessarily too locked into any X-Men universe, so it was easy to imagine that he could just kind of be transferred over, especially with his fourth wall breaking. There was a lot of wiggle room with his character. He sort of become a bridge between the MCU and any Fox X-Men characters. Obviously freaking awesome seeing Hugh Jackman come back as Wolverine, and a lot of other Fox characters from the past. I'm not going to get into those now. The second half of this video will kind of be, more spoilery talk, but yeah, I'd probably give this movie a 7 out of 10 just because there were so many expectations going into this movie. Especially, this isn't just a brand new franchise. This is a franchise that has had its peaks, and now we're kind of at a weird point where it's not dipping down like crazy necessarily, but it's not as high as it was going before post Endgame. And for a movie like this, I think it was very important for the MCU to just have a movie that was fun and enjoyable for everyone, because we haven't really had that in a while, if you think about it. The last fun MCU movie, fun, I say, like it was supposed to be fun, was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Ant-Man is supposed to be more of a fun character, but they kind of tried to go a little more serious, a little more high stakes with the Kang situation. And that movie, I think it might be one of the worst rated MCU movies to date. Other fun MCU movies, I'm trying to think, like Thor, Love and Thunder, total bomb, one of my least favorite MCU movies. And yeah, you get the point. The MCU, Marvel, really needed a win, and for this movie you kind of have to turn your brain off a little bit. There's quite a few plot holes that if you are really into this stuff the way I am, you can immediately go, oh, that doesn't really make much sense, like timeline wise. It doesn't necessarily ruin the movie, but for someone like me, like super nerds like us, we can kind of go like, that for a moment that kind of takes me out of the movie, and you kind of wonder how much care went into keeping the consistency of the MCU. Obviously the priority is making a good product, and then okay, maybe there's a few little inaccuracies. Plot-wise, in general, I think it was kind of a weak plot. The driving force for this movie, for marketing and just enjoying the movie, was Deadpool and Wolverine. You don't necessarily need the most complicated plot, but some of it does feel a little bit redundant, especially with the Wolverine character. He kind of has the same exact arc that he does in Logan. It's cool to see him come back, but he kind of came back in Logan, and he had an arc where he was this lost character, and by the end of it, he returns to being the hero that he once was. The exact same thing happens in this movie. Not necessarily a bad thing, but for a movie that is very aware of the events of Logan, you would think it would try a little bit harder to make his arc more unique. Wolverine and Deadpool, their relationship is super fun to see on screen. Seeing them fight each other, just a blast, man. Some of the CG, not the best. Some of the CG is very off-putting. That does take me out of some scenes, especially the first fight scene between Deadpool and Wolverine. There's a shot where Logan bear crawls towards Wade. It looks so bad, and if they even had like a stuntman doing that action of him bear crawling towards Deadpool, that would have looked so cool, but it was just like a weightless CGI monster going really, really fast. And there's a lot of moments like that in this movie where this is such a big budget movie, and you would think some scenes like that would be a little bit more polished. Especially with, the characters that are coming into this movie, you would expect a little more care going into that. Marvel in the past has been criticized for the way they've been dealing with CG. They have in the past overworked visual effects artists, and so some of that can kind of feel yucky if you know the ins and outs and the behind the scenes. So when you see bad CGI like that, typically it's a time thing. Like the artists, they're capable of creating, you know, probably the best version that you could think of. But the problem is, if the studio doesn't give them enough time, I mean, you're not going to come up with the best product. It's not going to look that good. And that is so obvious in a lot of scenes. I'm going to be honest though, the Deadpool character in the movies, I'm not really a fan of. I mean, I enjoy the movies, right? But those aren't movies where I'm excited to go back and watch them again. I watch them basically because I am a Marvel fan and I'm very interested in the world that Deadpool takes place in. Like, this is still an X-Men universe, so what does that look like? But Deadpool's humor, you know, when it gets too lazy, like when it's just about the more grotesque things, those feel like very lazy jokes to me, especially like Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. They're basically the same movie. At least to me, like they feel very cookie cutter the same. The first Deadpool movie, I'll give it a pass because that movie wasn't even supposed to happen. It had a very limited budget, so, you know, cool. But once Deadpool 2 came around, the budget was upped a little bit, but plot-wise, it was still very weak, very redundant. A lot of the same jokes were made. In this movie, tonally, it's still very much a Deadpool movie. It's got a lot of heart to it. I would say character-wise, there feels like a disconnect between the Wade that we see in this one compared to the previous ones. Because at the end of Deadpool 2, if I'm not mistaken, he has his family. He has it all. He's happy at the end. He saves Vanessa, his girlfriend. Yeah, like he saves the day. And then at the beginning of this movie, he's like in a completely different place. And yeah, a lot of years have passed, but Vanessa's left him and now he's working at a car dealership. He just wants to matter now and he wants to join the Avengers. And I don't know, I feel like the Deadpool in the other movies would be like, F the Avengers, you know, like who needs them? But now he's like, please, I want to be an Avenger. I want to be an X-Man. It was kind of a weird shift in his character. It doesn't break the movie for me, but it's just like a weird disconnect that I felt watching it. This movie, which surprised me, still feels more like a Deadpool movie first, and then it's in the MCU versus an MCU movie starring Deadpool. And I think a big part of that, which I wasn't even thinking about when watching it, was the R-ratedness, the blood, the gore, and the language that goes on. I was not even thinking that this was a Disney movie, and I think they succeeded in that because they wanted it to still feel like Deadpool. So yeah, from that perspective, yeah, they hit it out of the park tonally. Okay, so spoilers. Let's get into spoilers because I mean this is the meat of the movie. All the cameos and Easter eggs and all that stuff. The plot of the movie, I'm sure you know it, but we're just gonna kind of recap. So in the Marvel universes, there are anchor beings basically, which if those beings die, their universe begins to cease to exist. It begins to disintegrate because that's like the most important character in that universe. So if they're gone, that universe technically serves no purpose anymore. And in Deadpool's universe, Logan was the anchor being. Logan was the anchor being for the X-Men Fox movies. And essentially the TVA, they take Deadpool and they're like, hey, your universe is being destroyed, but you're an important character, you're special, so you get to be in the sacred timeline. You get to be in the MCU where everything is important. That is where you can matter. And so initially his idea to save his universe is to go find a proper Wolverine, plop him back in his world, and now his world won't die because now Wolverine is back. So we have a montage of Deadpool going to different universes and finding different Wolverine variants. This part was pretty cool. I thought we would have kind of gotten a little bit more of this part. There is the comic accurate height Wolverine where he's, I don't know, he's like 5. He's very short. He's like 5'2" or something, 5'4". We have the brown and yellow suit, which, dude, that was so cool. I wish we could have gotten more of that. But, man, it was so upsetting seeing how awesome he looks in those suits. And the fact that we're not seeing that until now. And in the brown suit, he is fighting the Hulk, which I wish we got more of that. There were rumors that may be in the movie, and I was so pumped to see that happen. But we don't see a fight. It's kind of just like the comic cover where he has his claws and you can kind of see Wolverine in the reflection. Yeah, I literally have a Wolverine versus Hulk comic right here. Like that's what that is. That's been in the background of my videos since 2020, like for 4 years plus. That's been in the background. So I was so pumped to see that in the movies, and we didn't quite get it. Maybe we'll get it in Secret Wars or something. Maybe they were like, okay, there'll be an opportunity to have that properly. But I don't know. It felt like this was the place to do it, right? Like this is the ultimate playground. Your plot allows you to go to different universes, and I don't know. I feel like they could have played around with that a lot more. There is the X-Men cover where Wolverine is getting crucified on the X, and there's a bunch of skulls on the back on the floor. That is a pretty iconic comic cover, and it was a pretty funny moment in the movie because Deadpool, he travels to that moment basically. And it's played for laughs because it's so dramatic. Seeing Superman as Wolverine was very strange. Ryan Reynolds has dubbed him the Cavalrine. I don't know. I didn't feel anything seeing that because for me, it kind of confirmed that really Marvel is just looking at what the internet wants and is just doing that. And in some moments that can work, but I feel like first and foremost, you should be focusing on doing your own thing and being more original instead of trying to pander to the fans and their fan casts. Kind of the same way John Krasinski was in Multiverse of Madness as Mr. Fantastic. I don't know. I was kind of just like, okay, like, is this variant going to return? Again, it's just a fan servicey moment that really serves no purpose other than going viral on Twitter. There's moments like that in a lot of these newer Marvel projects that feel very much contrived, engineered to be a viral moment so that more people can go watch instead of just being good. And yeah, I hope they get, I don't know what they should do with Wolverine, but don't put Henry Cavill. He's already getting old too, you know? So yeah, cool, I guess, but I don't know. One of the weird things is the Wolverine that we stick with for the majority of this movie, he's dubbed like the worst Wolverine there is because he let his X-Men die. But here's the thing. So did Logan. Like, so did the old man Logan that we see in the movie Logan. He let his X-Men die too. This Wolverine is basically a younger old man Logan. He has that same arc. And timeline-wise, it might not make sense because this movie confirms that Deadpool, his universe, is the same universe as the Logan movie universe, right? So before we kind of thought Logan was its own thing. It's its own standalone kind of whatever universe where they can just do whatever they want, be as gritty as they want. It doesn't connect to anything. But Deadpool comes in and goes, well, actually, it was the future of the Deadpool universe. And now they're saying Logan's dead. So Wade, your universe is dying. But here's the thing. For Deadpool, his Logan is still alive. Like at that moment in time. Because Logan takes place in the future, right? So to me, that doesn't really make sense. It doesn't break the movie, but it's one of those things where his anchor being is dead in the future. So I don't know. Someone explain that to me. So they go into the void, which basically is where the TVA prunes someone to eliminate them from any universe. And it's literally just that. It's a void. It's the island of misfit toys for Marvel. And again, here I felt like there was a lot more they could have done. We had the inclusion of Chris Evans returning as Johnny Storm. I thought this bit would be cooler, but the way it was presented, to me, it just felt like Chris Evans in a Fantastic Four suit. It didn't feel like Johnny Storm. I don't know why that was. Maybe it's because like he didn't bother shaving and he didn't bother, the hair was just his hair. Like he looked like Chris Evans and they didn't do any wardrobe stuff to make him a little bit more like Johnny Storm. Maybe lighten his hair or something because Johnny Storm is blonde. And yeah, in the older movies, you couldn't really tell that, like, because he had a crew cut in the first one, I think. And then, I don't know, it just didn't feel like the same character. It felt like Chris Evans was kind of just lazy and was like, I'll come in, but I don't want to have to do any makeup or anything. His character is utilized well, though. Like, he's played for laughs. He's not the smartest guy. And he does end up getting killed by Professor X's twin sister, Cassandra Nova, which as a villain I felt was pretty weak. Again, a movie like this doesn't necessarily need the most complicated villain, but it was a pretty weak villain, weak motivations. She's definitely not a Thanos. These kinds of movies, I don't think they need multiple movies for you to fear them as a villain. I mean, look at Heath Ledger's Joker. He had one movie. You understood what the character was. You never forget that. And in this movie, I don't know what her motives were. I don't know what she wanted. So yeah, weird. Her as a villain washes over you. There's some very disturbing imagery where she puts her hand in people's heads, literally, and like she feels their memories. It's weird. The Void as a concept is pretty cool for the Marvel Universe. especially in a movie like this where the plot revolves around these old Fox X-Men universes being pruned because they no longer serve a purpose. It's such a cool way to have like an in-universe explanation for why you no longer see these characters. In the real world, those movies are just canceled and you never see those characters again. But what does that look like for them in their movies? Do their movies just continue to be? Like, do they just get to live out their lives? Or does the TVA prune them when their movies no longer continue? That's cool. And so that's why I thought there'd be a lot more interesting things going on, a lot more characters. But we get a lot of villains, like random X-Men villains. We have Juggernaut. I think we have Blob, Lady Deathstrike. I'm trying to think of Azazel, and most notably Sabretooth. I think we also have Toad and Pyro. But Sabretooth, there's a pretty cool moment in the movie where Logan has kind of a face-off with Sabretooth. There's an inconsistency there though too, because Wade refers to Sabretooth as Logan's brother. But here's the thing, that Sabretooth, I don't think he is Logan's brother. The Sabretooth in X-Men Origins Wolverine, that is Logan's brother, right? But even in the comics, they're not related. So yeah, this version of Sabretooth is not related to Logan. That's why he never says anything about that to Logan. All right, cameo wise, we don't even get like too many cameos. We just get some character introductions of older characters. So we have the return of X-23. It was cool to see her older, interacting with a younger Logan and just seeing what that dynamic is like. And she's already seen that he can be redeemed. But again, it's kind of the same thing where he gets saved by his daughter. She teaches him that he can be a hero still. She gives him the final push to do the right thing. We have Jennifer Garner returning as Elektra. I forgot her name for a second. See, that's why I didn't care when she came out. I think I saw the Elektra movie once. What's funny is I remember watching the original Daredevil movie and she was in it, and a few years later they have the Elektra movie. But I remember being very little and watching it going, where the heck is Daredevil? Like, I swear to God, I've seen this movie. Why is Daredevil not showing up? I had no idea that it was her standalone movie at that point, because there weren't that many like spin-off movies in the early 2000s. But yeah, it was, I mean, cool, I guess. Returning character Blade, Wesley Snipes returned in this movie. Was not expecting that whatsoever. If anything, I was expecting the new Blade to return, but again, I guess that wouldn't necessarily excite audiences as much. So yeah, he returns, and he also kind of references his line in the original Blade where I think he says like, it was some stupid line that made no sense, but a lot of people liked it. Some other effers are always trying to skate uphill. And then he kind of says the same thing in this one. Like, some other effers are still trying to skate up that hill. Probably my favorite character inclusion was Gambit. Channing Tatum makes his debut. He doesn't return. He makes his debut. Completely not expecting that. I'm so glad I stayed away from any spoilers. That is something that I've always kind of been like, been bummed about, that we never got any Gambit in any capacity other than X-Men Origins Wolverine. For those of you who don't know, Channing Tatum was supposed to be Gambit for the longest time, probably 2014 when X-Men Days of Future Past came out. It was kind of a renaissance of X-Men stuff, and projects were being announced, and one of them being a solo Gambit movie. And Channing Tatum was very publicly very pumped to be playing this character, and the movie was kind of getting delayed, and at a certain point it just didn't happen. And then you would hear rumors again, and he'd come out being like, dude, I still want to play this character, like, I love this character, let's do this. And then nothing would happen. In 2024, and he does have that Cajun Bayou accent that you really, really cannot understand, and it's played for laughs. He is kind of an out there looking character, so you do want to play into the laughs with him, and it works. And seeing him being able to use his powers in an R-rated movie where he doesn't have to hold back, and he's literally just exploding dudes with his kinetic energy, freaking awesome. I do wish that final battle where you have all these Fox characters, they're fighting all the Fox villains, I do wish it looked better. Like, some of the action in this movie is so hard to follow, and it really sucks because a lot of the character stuff works. You're excited to see all the action, but once you get there, dude, it is so hard to follow what's going on. There's some moments where you can see it's actually stuntmen doing their thing. That looks cool, but there's a lot of like very fast camera movements and trying to hide stuff. There's just a lot of action that's very hard to follow, especially in that big fight. And then later on, Wolverine and Deadpool, they have to fight kind of an army of Deadpool variants, which I didn't understand why they were so adamant on killing Wade and Logan. It didn't make sense to me, because Deadpool isn't an evil villain. He's not an evil character, but they painted them as like these bloodthirsty Deadpools, which I don't understand. To me, their motivation, again, was very vague. They were kind of just shooting to shoot. Extended fight scene. For the most part, it's just like one shot going across the screen. It's just this very long pan. Of our heroes plowing through all these Deadpools. I feel like conceptually, that is such a cool idea. It feels like they try to hide stuff with blood splatters, and there's no weight to it, because again, you're like, okay, well, all these guys regenerate, right? Every single person in this fight scene cannot die. So, I don't know. There's no stakes here. There's no super cool choreography where it's worth it. If you compare that fight scene to the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 fight scene, the hallway fight where the camera's panning with a purpose and each member of the Guardians is doing their thing, and it just looks so awesome, and you want to replay that scene. But for this long pan, it kind of just washed over me, and then it concludes with Wolverine and Deadpool jumping out of a bus, and they're just CG dudes. Like, it's so bad. It looks so jarring. They linger on that shot for a while, and you're just looking at a CG Hugh Jackman. It's easier to hide Deadpool being CG, but you can't hide skin being fake. And yeah, the movie concludes with Wolverine being willing to sacrifice himself, but then Wade doesn't let him sacrifice himself. And so they both have their moment of wanting to be the guy to make the sacrifice, and they kind of agree to do it together. And then that ends up working to their favor. The main plot MacGuffin here doesn't really matter. I think it's called the Time Ripper, and I don't know why Cassandra Nova wants it. She wants to just like destroy all the universes or something. I don't know, man. Like, I couldn't tell you. That's how weak that plot was, because I should be able to tell you in depth what she wants to do and why. That's how you know you have a good villain. So yeah, they hold hands, sacrifice themselves. Turns out two regenerative dudes cancels out certain death. Then Mr. Paradox, who is kind of the bad TVA head in this movie, he's arrested by the good TVA, and Wade kind of asks if there's any way they can save the Fox characters that we saw in the Void. So the movie ends with X-23 actually being brought into the Deadpool universe. She's chilling with Wade and Logan. Yeah, Logan's kind of brought into Deadpool's family. And so because she was saved, it doesn't show this, but that means Elektra, Gambit, and Blade were also presumably saved too. I don't know if we're going to see them in Secret Wars or something. I really hope if they bring back Gambit, just make it Channing Tatum. Clearly wants to do it. You're rebooting the X-Men. You might as well bring him in to have a familiar face on the team. And, as a comic relief, like, you want your comic relief, there you go. I'm still trying to think of what else I'm missing, because this movie is massive. Yeah, we had the return of Happy Hogan. Wade goes into interview for the Avengers, and he's interviewed by Happy. This interview takes place in 2018, and Wade asks Happy where the big guy is. Where's Tony? And it's funny because in the timeline, Infinity War happens in April of 2018, and then Deadpool 2 comes out May of 2018. At this point in the interview, Tony Stark is in space. Like, he's stuck in space. The blip has happened in the MCU, and then Wade comes in and he's asking to be a member of the Avengers. It doesn't seem like that in the movie. Like, Happy doesn't seem like he's distraught when he's asked, where's Tony? It's more played for laughs. There's the little picture frame in that scene where it's Tony Stark with Peter Parker, but so they didn't have to pay Sony. They had to cover Tom Holland with the big Iron Man mask. It's funny because that mask, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but that's the mask that the little kid from Iron Man 2 wears. Yeah, that little kid is canonically Peter Parker. So yeah, that was literally trying to say this is a Peter Parker reference without saying it outright. I mean, this movie is just so massive, and yeah, man, this movie was huge. It did super well at the box office. It's a hit. People love it. I think it's like the biggest R-rated movie of all time already. And it just takes a lot to kind of process. What did I just watch? So much happened. I think this was definitely one of the stronger MCU entries in recent years. But the thing is, this doesn't necessarily move the needle in the MCU in terms of world building. If you look at Captain America: Brave New World, that movie is going to kind of push forward the narrative of what's going on in the MCU. This one is still kind of, it takes place in the Deadpool universe and in the Void, but it doesn't necessarily come into the MCU yet. But presumably the way this ends, Hugh Jackman, he's still pumped to be Wolverine. Like he's still going. It doesn't provide any kind of conclusion for his character, really. He's just back to being a hero again. And so we'll probably most definitely see his version of Wolverine again, if not in Avengers Doomsday, in Avengers Secret Wars. And Avengers Doomsday, I'm not going to talk about it too much, man, because I'm going to make a separate video, but what's happened in there? Like, so much has happened in the month that I have not been uploading. So I'm going to talk about all of it. I'm super excited. Yeah, I appreciate you guys watching this kind of recap / review. I'm sure there's a ton of Easter eggs that I've missed, but those are all the ones that I remember just off the top of my head. Yeah, like, subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to help out the channel a little more, you can join, become a member. And yeah, I appreciate all you guys. I'll see you in the next video.